What's going on, guys? Bengal again here, coming back at you with another video. And today, the topic for today's video, as you can tell from the title, is 10 players I expect to break out in 2021. Now, there are some players on here that were pretty good last year. No rookies on this list, by the way. But I think they're going to take another step forward because of either A, situation, or B, more experience in the league. Now, obviously, every year players break out that we don't expect. They're not going to be on this list because obviously I don't expect them to break out. But I think I've chosen a really good 10, and there were a lot more that I wanted to choose as well, like Laviska Shenault, who I think could have a really good season, but couldn't fit everyone onto a 10 / kind of 11-man list, which you're going to find out why that is in just a minute. This video is brought to you by Hawthorne. Great brand for personal grooming when it comes to shampoo, conditioner, which I use pretty much every single day. What I do use every single day, though, without fault, is the hand wash, the soap. It's so important to wash your hands, stay clean, keep the germs off you, especially considering everything going on. I'm not sure if you've ever wondered what favorite athletes of yours, use to stay clean, but Steph Curry loves the body wash, and Zach LaVine used a quiz I'm going to show you guys in just a second to personalize his cologne. All you have to do is go to hawthorne.co, hawthorne.co. Might even have a chance to win a free cologne if you go to the website. They'll ask you questions from as simple as to what your hair type is, all the way to how much you stink. Doesn't take too long, and then they'll tailor your entire bathroom in seconds from 500,000 combinations. And maybe my favorite part, every single one of these things comes with a subscription plan where you can save money, get it shipped to you exactly when you're going to need them. So get ready for this season like some of your favorite athletes and go to hawthorne.co, that's hawthorne, and use code BENGAL10 to get 10% off on your first purchase. But of course, week 1 of the NFL season officially starts tonight. You got the Cowboys playing the Bucks. Let me know who you think is going to win down in the comment section below. Let's go ahead and kick this off with number 10. At number 10, I have Brandon Ayuk. Was a rookie last year out of Arizona State. Had a pretty good rookie year. 748 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns, averaging over 60 yards receiving per game. He was also used a little bit as a rusher, did have 2 rushing touchdowns. But what Brandon Ayuk can do in year 2 in San Francisco, I'm super excited to watch, especially if Trey Lance ends up getting playing time, where Brandon Ayuk can do what he did at Arizona State, which is be used more of as a deep threat, which he doesn't really have a major opportunity to do with being limited by Jimmy Garoppolo's arm strength. Ayuk is a plus route runner, and he's especially good after the catch as well. So I think in year 2, a little bit more experience in the league, as you're going to find with the trend for a lot of these guys, I think they're poised to break out. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive guru, and getting a bunch of pieces back on that offensive line, bringing in Alex Mack, who's an experienced veteran, it's going to just make things a lot easier for that offense, and I think Brandon Ayuk is going to be at the center of that. I think all things considered last year, Joe Burrow, who comes in at number 9, was pretty good. Wasn't exceptional. The deep throw accuracy wasn't all the way there. However, with Joe Burrow bringing in bigger pieces on that offense, you think about guys who were already there. Auden Tate, Tyler Boyd, one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. T. Higgins, who had a really good rookie year last year. And now Jamar Chase, who has taken top 5 in the draft. I know he had a really shaky preseason. Jamar Chase is still probably going to be a pretty good receiver in the NFL. I think Joe Burrow has all the weapons in place to be extremely, extremely effective in year 2. Had more time to learn the playbook. Obviously, the big ACL injury was tough. But Joe Burrow, I think, is going to bounce back in a huge way. Was, again, decent last year. Threw for about 2,700 yards. 13 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions as a rookie. Not too bad on a pretty clearly failing Bengals team. The offensive line didn't improve a ton, and I think that could maybe hold him back a little bit in the team in general in 2021. But I think Burrow is going to take a step in year 2. He's got the weapons. The offensive line is a bit of a question mark, but I think as a quarterback in year 2 of his career, despite missing the final 6 games last season, I think he's going to end up playing pretty well. Final 5 games, by the way, 16-game schedule last year, obviously, and every other year except for pre-1982 or something like that was 14 games. Something close. It doesn't really matter. Number 8 is going to be Jerry Jeudy, choosing another receiver here, and Jeudy is a pretty good choice. Had a little bit of struggles last year with dropping the football near the end of the season, but Jerry Jeudy is someone who is an exceptional route runner already, was well known coming out of Alabama, and he showcased that last year. Really, really good route runner. Drew Lock just wasn't it. Now, is Teddy Bridgewater that guy? I think clearly not, But what Teddy's going to do is going to be a little bit more conservative. He's going to make the throws that he needs to do underneath, which Drew Lock wasn't always capable of. And he's going to give Jerry Jeudy opportunities with the football after the catch. An extremely elusive guy. Jerry Jeudy is just a tough guy to tackle in space. So I think for a guy that posted 850 yards last year on 14 starts, only 3 touchdowns, I think those numbers will continue to improve. I would predict over 1,000 yards and probably at least 7 or 8 touchdowns here in year number 2 for Jeudy. Number 7 is going to be Montez Sweat of Washington football team. They're going to change their name maybe pretty soon. Saw some options. The Red Hogs were an option. Red Wolves, I think, is clearly the best choice. The Presidents was one. The Defenders, some not so great options in there. But for Montez Sweat, 7 sacks as a rookie, 9 last year in year 2 as a 24-year-old. I think going in to his age 25-year-old season with a stacked defense in Washington, with Chase Young on the other side, who is clearly well known now as a disruptive force on the defensive line after just 1 season in the league. It's going to open up Montez Sweat to more opportunities for going one-on-one with the tackle as opposed to a guard coming over and helping. I think double teaming Chase Young is going to be what a lot of teams look to do. Should free up Montez Sweat for a lot of opportunities to get after the quarterback. He's continuing to improve, and again, it's a fantastic defensive line there with Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, who was extended. They've got some better linebackers in there now. So I think with maybe Jamin Davis, someone who's athletic as he is, first-round pick out of Kentucky for that inside linebacker, you have him on Mike blitzes. It's going to create a lot of disruption. Guys are going to be moving all around. Again, a lot of one-on-one opportunities. I think Montez Sweat probably posts double-digit sacks in 2021. Back-to-back edge rushers here in the form of Harold Landry. I love Landry, loved him coming out of Boston College, and I think he's been a fairly good player in the NFL. Had a career-high 9 sacks in 2019. Thought maybe that was trending towards his breakout year, and then only 5.5 last year. I think with how good the Tennessee defensive line could be, you got Jeffrey Simmons. You brought in Bud Dupree, who I think is going to command a lot of respect from opposing offensive lines as well. Harold Landry might be the best edge rusher on this team right now, and a lot of people don't know his name. He's going into a contract year. So if Harold Landry wants to get paid big time at the end of the 2021 season, he's going to look to put up massive numbers. So for a guy that has never posted double-digit sacks before, with Bud Dupree coming in, with Jeffrey Simmons kind of establishing himself as one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL, Harold Landry should have a ton of opportunities to get after the quarterback, make a ton of plays. Had 10 tackles for loss this year, or last year. I think those could only go up. Harold Landry is a good player, looking to get paid. I think he's going to have a really, really good year. So at the start of the video, I talked about 10 or 11 players for this breakout list. Well, that's because with this number 5 spot, I'm choosing 2 of the sophomore receivers for the Las Vegas Raiders in Bryan Edwards and in Henry Ruggs III. Now, I think a lot of people will underrate and not respect Henry Ruggs' game. The big thing that you have to understand is it's not the yards and it's not the touchdowns and the catches with Henry Ruggs. His big time value is that he's so fast. And it's like, okay, well, you can be fast. Anyone can be fast. Doesn't mean they're going to be a good football player. But you really have to think beyond the numbers and actually what Henry Ruggs does for this offense. Similarly, in the way that John Brown worked as a clear out for Buffalo, and was a big reason why their offense has been as good as it has been over the past couple years, Henry Ruggs worked as a clear out for the Raiders. He opens up a ton of space because the safeties back up, the cornerbacks back up. That's a real thing, especially with slower corners. They have to allow a lot of space because they don't want to get beat over the top. So they need that head start, essentially. So even if Henry Ruggs doesn't post unbelievable numbers, he is still adding to that offense a lot. You really have to think about what he does for the other players on the field. Like Nelson Aguilar had a real chance to thrive last year, and he did with the Raiders. And a big part of that was Henry Ruggs commanding the respect that he commanded, and you can get a lot of things opened up underneath and over the middle of the field. So I think Henry Ruggs is going to have a better season. Only had 450 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. So I think those numbers are going to improve. Only had 26 catches in his 13 games. Those numbers will improve as long as he stays healthy. But he does a ton for that offense regardless. And I think a player who's going to benefit a lot this year with Nelson Aguilar not already on the team anymore, you got Bryan Edwards. Second-year receiver out of South Carolina. Bryan Edwards was impressive in preseason and camp last year. The same thing was true in 2021. I think Edwards is primed for a really good year too. Only made 3 starts last year, only played in 12 games, had 11 catches for just under 200 yards and a touchdown. Those numbers are going to improve big time. Derek Carr seems to be finally finding his footing with the Raiders. Like, Derek Carr's an about top 10 to top 15 quarterback in the league. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And Bryan Edwards, as someone who has the size to get over the top and catch balls down the field, he also is a really good possession style receiver that can move the chains routinely. Big body, 6'3", 210 pounds, and he's got great hands, natural catching ability. He's going to have a big time year this year, I think. Probably at least 600 to 700 yards. And I think Bryan Edwards could probably sniff 7, 8, 9 touchdowns even. I think he's going to have a really, really big year. Back to the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with Isaiah Simmons for the Arizona Cardinals. Second-year linebacker. They've used him in a lot of ways. He's made only 7 starts in his career. He barely saw the field for the first half. Didn't really know what he was doing. Didn't really get the opportunities to make plays. And in the second half of the season, he did get more opportunities and he did make more plays. Had an interception, had a forced fumble, recovered a fumble, had a couple sacks. Not a ton of tackles, 54 combined. It's nothing crazy, but I think in year 2, with a huge-time rookie pairing in Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons is probably going to be really, really good. I doubt he makes a Fred Warner-type jump, just because that's pretty rare to see. But I think Isaiah Simmons is going to end up being really, really good. He's too good, too athletic to not be an amazing player in the league. So for someone that was so talented in so many different roles at Clemson, I think if the Cardinals can really get him focused on doing 1 or 2 things, he's going to be really, really good in those roles. I like him as an overhang defender where he can stick with maybe a tight end, play the run, even stick with a slot receiver at times. Isaiah Simmons is an incredible linebacker. I don't really think he has the size, even at 6'4", 238, to fit into run fits and really make a play as a run defender on the inside. I'm just not sure he's stocky enough to make those types of plays. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in year 2, but I think if the Cardinals can get him in situations where he can really, really be effective, which is as an overhang defender, in my opinion, which is in coverage or maybe erasing a tight end from the game, Isaiah Simmons will be really, really good. Number 3 is going to be David Montgomery. Posted 4.5 yards per carry last year, just about 4.3, had just over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. David Montgomery, I think, is going to have a lot of opportunities again this year. Had about 250 carries. He's only improved his time in the league. He's going into year 3. He only averaged 3.7 yards per carry, just under 900 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie. Not particularly impressive, but year 2 is significantly better. And I think in year 3, he's only going to look to improve. You have a pretty good offensive line in there. I know you lost Charles Leno, but you're getting James Daniels healthy. I think this offensive line as a run blocking unit will be pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tevin Jenkins. I know his injury will probably limit how much he sees the field in year 1, if at all. But this offensive line, as much as they maybe lack as a pass blocking unit, they can be decent as run blockers. David Montgomery showcased that last year. He's going to be a big focal point of the offense. Yeah, they have Darnell Mooney. They have Allen Robinson. We don't know what's going to happen at quarterback other than that Justin Fields will probably see the field at some point, but we don't know. Andy Dalton going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears. He's going to rely on David Montgomery a lot. I expect him to get a lot of touches, and making the most of those touches is exactly what David Montgomery will probably do here in 2021. Really good player, really good at breaking tackles. Arm tackles are not going to bring him down, and he's a guy that can catch the football pretty well as well. Had over 50 catches and over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns last year as a receiver. This is someone that could probably sniff maybe 1,600 total yards, maybe even more than that, 1,800 total yards in 2021. Big hopes for David Montgomery in year 3. Number 2 is not going to be surprised if you watch my channel. It's Brian Burns. I was a big fan of his coming out of Florida State, and he was pretty impressive in year 1, posting 7.5 sacks and only 5 starts. Last year, playing in 15 games, had 9 sacks. But Brian Burns is quickly becoming one of the best edge rushers in the entire league. And with the Panthers and Derek Brown going into year 2, with their defensive line improving, Yeturgros Matos getting more experience in the NFL, Brian Burns, again, will only have more opportunities to get into one-on-one situations and to get after the quarterback. He's too athletic, too quick off the edge for a lot of guys to block him, and he's becoming really, really good technically as well. I think Brian Burns is going to have an incredible year. double-digit sacks. This defense is improving. This team is improving. I think he's a really, really big reason why. So I'm going to go all in on Brian Burns. I'm not going to say he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year because I don't want to make that type of a statement. I still probably think it's going to be Aaron Donald, but I think Brian Burns is going to have 11, 12, 13 plus sacks. I have really, really high hopes for him, and especially in a 17-game season, getting another game to post ridiculous numbers. I think double-digit sacks are almost guaranteed for Brian Burns. And another Chicago Bear on this list for the number 1 spot. Got Darnell Mooney. Again, not a surprise if you watch this channel. I'm a big Darnell Mooney fan. Really, really solid in year 1. I think he's only going to continue to improve. And with Justin Fields probably starting at some point where he can actually air the ball down the field, Darnell Mooney is going to look to be the big-time recipient of that. Allen Robinson's a really good player. Not really a big-time deep threat, and they don't really have a ton of deep threats. If you look at what Justin Fields was able to accomplish with Chris Olave at Ohio State, big-time deep threat, Darnell Mooney can be the same exact weapon for Justin Fields when he becomes the starter, because he inevitably will become the starter. Darnell Mooney is a solid route runner who's pretty good with the football in the air. I think, again, in year 2, only improving, only getting more opportunities in the league. Had about 100 targets last year. Caught 61 of those passes for 4 touchdowns, over 600 yards. I think this is another guy who, with Allen Robinson being on the other side of him, and maybe a better quarterback coming in at some point, will get a ton of opportunities to make big-time plays. Darnell Mooney, I think, is going to be around 1,000 yards. I think probably 7 or 8 touchdowns as well. Really, really high hopes for Darnell Mooney. I hope he even exceeds those expectations. But in year 2, I really do think he's going to take a step. He's already a good route runner. I know everyone points to that Jalen Ramsey clip where Nick Foles overthrew Darnell Mooney, but Mooney broke his ankles. I'm not saying Mooney's so good because of one play, but if you're capable of hitting, an unreal double move on the game's best corner, you can figure out how to harness that and unleash that on other DBs on a more regular basis. So Mooney in year 2, I'm all in. Those are my 10/11 breakout players for 2021. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Who would I miss out on? I talked about Laviska Shenault. I think there's some other guys who are not making this list who are definitely primed to have pretty good breakout seasons as well. Let me know who I missed down in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
I hit it at the park, Ben Bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game Nintendo. Playing with the best like that.